That's why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this DJ?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
Really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, welcome to book club number 71 of the DGen Roundtable. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Will. I'm a traveling tower worker and I talk about crypto and stuff, but you guys don't care about that. What you guys care about is this awesome book. But I'm also joined tonight by my excellent, fantastic co-host and the creator of the DGen Roundtable Book Club, Mr. Zenith. Zenith, for you guys that don't know, is the DGen Roundtable's legal and government expert. And we're here to talk to you tonight about Alpha God, the psychology of religious violence and oppression. Oh, shoot. There was a subtitle to the book that I totally forgot, but it's basically more about evolutionary psychology than it is about religion and how human beings evolve and stuff and all that good stuff. But before we get into the book, let's talk about how we are. Mr. Zenith Broski, how are you? I see you have a periscope tickling your beard there. We always love the cat periscope. What's up, dude?
Not much, but yes, we have Miss Marley joining us. She's probably going to fall asleep in my lap as usual, but we'll definitely bap around the microphone first before she gets tired of that. And outside of that, doing good. We have the battle station. I don't know if it's fully operational yet, but I think it's darn close to it. So got some kinks ironed out over the last week and a half, effectively. So apologies for the Indian call center microphone I was using, but we're back to the good stuff. So we're doing well. We finally have the ability to fire up Halo 2 again, and we're living large. Also, the Helldivers patch for the ODST stuff just dropped as well, so I've been having fun with that too. I don't know why, it's been a Halo mood lately.
Yeah, Helldivers are like the whole world of orbital drop shock troops and space marines and big giant dudes covered in armor dropping down onto Earth from space. It all originated from Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. I think he wrote it back in the 50s or the 60s. I love like pretty much all of Robert Heinlein's books. That might be one that we cover one day for the federalistic stuff. But yeah, dude, I very much enjoyed the Helldivers game. I've only played a smidgen of it. I'm not very good at it, but I love watching my buddy play just because it's so over the top and like democracy, freedom, all the crazy stuff, and they're fighting bugs and robots, and it's like you gotta love that. But that's awesome, man. And I love that they took so much after the ODSTs and Halo 2 and whatnot.
Well, it's that it's little known, but there actually is the original Helldivers game, which I played in college with some friends. It kind of was like, I don't know if you ever played like the twin stick shooting mode on Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies, the arcade one, where it's like top down, but you move around with your left stick, and wherever you point the right stick and shoot, that's where it'll go.
Oh,
and that's what the original game looked like, and it has come a long way. The original game did not take much traction because my friends and I picked up a copy of the game in the old discount bin for like $10, and we're like, whatever, we'll play it for a weekend. Let's go.
Awesome. That's great. Man, I remember back when video games were cheap, when things were cheap, before there was all this inflation and we had to go and invent cryptocurrency. I say we, I was not a part of it. Somebody else invented cryptocurrency. I'm taking advantage of the fact that it exists. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We're here to talk about cryptocurrency. We're here to talk about how evolutionary psychology and the way that people like essentially create gods all throughout human time and all throughout human culture all have like a whole bunch of similarities. And if you want to like zoom a little bit back from talking about gods and religion and just talk about like how people look at dominant male archetypes and leaders and how folks will essentially create godlike figures of their own. What like some people did it with Hitler, some people did it with Trump, some people did it with Gandhi. Some people do it with these leaders of these mega churches, right? There's godlike figures that live up in the clouds that we never see and that we think and interact with, and then there's also like people in real life on Earth that folks treat with essentially the same thing as a godlike status, and they all follow these really cool little patterns and things, and that's what the book explores. So before I talk too much about the book, we've done a little bit of catching up of how we are. Let's catch up with the folks at home. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the best part of the night. It's time for chat motherfucking shoutouts, the part of the show where we shout you out, those of you that are kind enough to shout us out. And first and foremost, we have Mr. West coming in at 1:30 a.m. this morning here in Texas Central Time. I don't know where West is, but that's when it showed up, and I can't even see this post on YouTube. So it's interesting that StreamYard grabs it, but YouTube doesn't. He might have commented this during one of the other theoretical streams, but like because we were supposed to do this book club like 2 weeks now, and we keep pushing it back. But shout out to you, West. Glad that we could have you here with us. We almost never see you during the live shows, but yes, you are the first one that I could see on StreamYard. But the first one to come in today is Mr. Kenturian54X, who says, "What's up, D-Gens? Good day to be above ground." I agree. Every day that we're alive is
Always.
a good. I sent Kenturian a video of a tractor or a farmer pretending to be caught in the PTO axle that comes out like from behind tractors that they'll spin and they'll grab onto things and they won't stop no matter what. And it was just a dude going like whoa, whoa, and it was a funny little meme. So good to see you. Glad that you're with us. Glad you're alive. And also we're joined by Miss Amber Simon. Miss Amber Simon says hello. Hello to you too, Amber Simon. Glad we could have you with us tonight as well. Not a whole lot going in the chat shoutouts department, but we appreciate all 5 of you guys that are watching us on YouTube and the 2 of you that are watching us on Twitter. Y'all are freaking kick-ass, and I'm willing to bet that battle-hardened Sniper is out there somewhere watching and sneaking. So shout out to you, Sniper, if you're ninja watching. We love you, broski. All right, and that concludes the chat shoutouts. So I'll go ahead and get into the.
Tell you what, let's run some disclaimers first.
Yes.
Obviously, this is a book that is about religion, kind of. It's primarily about psychology. What this book does is that it's taking a look at all the different versions of religion that humans have had over the years, and then trying to analyze it from the psychological point of view and understand how he's trying to view religion or godlike figures, but imagines it as the way that we can do this is we kind of use evolutionary psychology to see like the psyche or the persona that humans are putting onto a deity in order to either like make sense of their lives, give them some sort of direction, or pretty much just kind of be an aspirational thing that they want to be in the future. So what we're really not doing is we're not like getting into the religious debates about all the different stuffs and the schisms of the Catholic Church in the 1500s. No. What we're doing is we're looking at what humans through history have kind of like viewed as godlike figures and kind of like the archetypes that fit each of the different ones and how that reflects back about what was going on in that civilization or society at the time, and then how that feeds into human psychology, which eventually gets us to today, which is going to be very different from all the stuff throughout human history. So this is a trip through time, if you will, all the way back to the beginning. So that's what this is. If you read the book, it becomes a little more, it's kind of unclear at first, but it becomes more apparent as you read the book, which is that the author is, I believe he's an atheist. I have a few quotes for it, but what he does is that the whole point of trying to write the book is that he is looking through it in order to understand how humans have interacted with this sort of relationship before, so that we can actually kind of like understand what's going on, dissect it, have context, and be able to kind of separate out like the chaff from the wheat. Understand what are some good manifestations of human psychology, what are some negative manifestations of human psychology. It is a very charged topic, so that's why I wanted to do this first, just to let you guys know, like, yes, take it seriously if you so desire to. A lot of people do take this stuff very seriously, but we're trying to understand. We're using this book as a framework to get into the second half of our conversation tonight, which is we want to look at figures inside of the world as it exists today, or some recent historical figures, and see how they've kind of like appealed to these like religious arguments that the book makes, so that we can understand why, when some people are viewed as like godlike figures, that you understand what exactly are they trying to go for, and how they're being perceived in that way. And then ultimately, yes, we will be applying this to the crypto space about some figures that may have been described as godlike figures, if you will, or have these religious aspects of their appearance, projection, whatever you want to call it. All right, does that about cover it?
That about covers it, and,
Okay.
and you were very thorough in your explanation. For the folks at home who do not like thorough, who like the peanut brain diamond hand, this book is not about shitting on your religion. This book talks about how people think about
Correct.
large figures, whether they are real or whether they are I don't want to say not real, whether they are real or whether they are
How about more ethereal?
ethereal, spiritual, whatever
Spiritual.
you want to call it, right?
Spiritual is the correct one.
Whether you can reach out and physically touch them or not. This book is about how it's more about how men create things inside their own heads, and then they apply that imagination onto other things. So like if I go up to a guy who lives in the desert and has never heard about Jesus before, and I start talking about Jesus, he'll have no idea what I'm talking about, or he'll have his own different version that he's made for himself. The point is like the stuff exists inside my head and inside my heart and inside everyone else who thinks and acts in the same way, and in that you get like the little network effect, which also applies to cryptocurrency. It applies to sports ball teams, and applies to all sorts of things. But the point is, the first time a person reads this book, they might think that it's about shitting on religion, and it can sound like that. It certainly can, but that is not the direction that it serves one best. It like folks will often get upset about that sort of thing. It's better to look at it from the perspective of, oh, this is how people's brains work, not like, oh, God isn't real. It's two completely different topics there. So anyways, that was the direction that we wanted to take this conversation. So good good disclaimer there, Zenith. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and just kind of like sum the book up in a sentence. It's basically, so it's a book that explains religion through the eyes of an ape, revealing how evolution, not revelation, built our gods inside our minds. So there you go. The general synopsis and flow of the book is as follows. So the first part is about the alpha god thesis, which introduces the core idea that religious gods reflect the psychology and power needs of dominant status-seeking males. The second part of the book starts going about how God and war kind of go together, and it details religious narratives and how they justify violence, especially and specifically male-on-male aggression, using evolutionary drives for dominance and resource control. The third part of the book then focuses on sex, jealousy, and control, and talks about how there's a whole bunch of sexual taboo and virginity obsession and female subjugation that is more or less evolved, um, uh, like it more or less drives towards evolved reproductive strategy. The fourth part talks about like the polygynous brain, which I have to Google what polygynous means. Oh, polygyny. That's like multiple women married to one man. That's what it is. So the polygynous brain explores why men, and by extension male gods, favor polygyny, and how this has shaped patriarchal norms in sacred texts. The fifth part of the brain, or not the brain, the fifth part of the book talks about the cost of religion, and it documents how these evolved instincts have caused wars, how they have led to genocide and mass repression, often in the name of what folks would call a god. And then the sixth part of the book talks about the escape of the alpha god, and it advocates for more secular morality and scientific humanism as a path beyond our evolutionary baggage, and basically moving beyond the emotional impulse control that is what more or less dominated human evolution and advancement over the last X, Y, and Z time of human existence. So that's the general down and dirty of how the book goes. I want to say that there's like 12 or so chapters, but those are like, if you combine the chapters into similar things, that's more or less how it goes. Zenith, am I missing anything here? Was there anything in there that that stuck out to you that I didn't quite go over?
Nope, that's pretty much it. We can get into them. And we're pretty much just going to be breaking down the different like archetypes, and then also maybe starting off with a little bit of like why, I guess, why people started having these kind of thoughts, thinking about thinking.
Yes. Yeah. So the first part, when you go into the archetypes, there's two general archetypes when it comes to godlike figures and stuff, or dominant alpha, or like people that we respect and revere. And it's basically you have the dominant male god, who is like, the shoot, what's it, the Genghis Khan, the Joseph Stalin, the Adolf Hitler, the Mao Zedong, the person that's like, I win through violence, and I have all the women, and I have like a giant harem, and if you speak ill against me, then I'm gonna cut your head off, and your enemies will be, if you're on my team, then your enemies will be torn asunder, and their grounds level, there will be wailing and grinding of teeth, and yada yada. And then you have the prestigious god, which is more, if you liken these two examples to the Christian faith, then it aligns more with like the Old Testament God, and the way that God is presented in the New Testament. So you have the dominant alpha male God of the Old Testament, which is like, yes, I will crush all of the, like Yahweh, as he was referred to. I will crush all your enemies, and if you follow Jacob, and you march around Jericho, then you'll knock these walls down. And if you live in Sodom and Gomorrah, and you're doing bad things, then I'll burn you all to the dust and whatnot. And then in the New Testament is like, yes, you got to respect me. Here I am. I'm going to give you my son. You guys are more inclined to go do free will, and go talk about great things, and do positivity, and blah blah blah. And that's the more prestigious God. That's the more the more modern version of, or modern interpretation of these dominant, or of these alpha male archetypes. So
Yeah, the author mainly tries to dissect it into individual characteristics, but he also references two ways to kind of look at like different batches, if you will. One of them is more like male psyche versus female psyche. The male psyche is this dominant alpha male archetype of like war, conquest, um, abundance and resources and women, all that stuff. And then the more female psyche one is, I think he calls it like the benevolent father archetype, which is that it is a solemn figure that like loves and respects you, but also is there to provide for you and allow flourishing. So it's more of human flourishing versus human domination, as the male and female way that he breaks down how you can kind of like view or see how different versions of each of the religions kind of like starts to form that religious psyche.
yeah. And it's funny, because like one of the quotes that I like the best from the book is that the gods that men worship most often resemble the people who created them, which is like,
There you go.
you get like like if horses had a god, I would imagine that the god would look like a horse. If
It would be the fastest and strongest.
yeah, and if crickets had a god, then it would be the god that can play the best violin, and can grant you the most wishes on a star, and wears the nicest of silk top hats and things. Like there would be all these different, like, this actually, you find this argument kind of humorously in modern Christian circles, where people bring up the skin color of Jesus, and it's like, he was probably an Arabic dude, but you most often see like white Jesus, or like you go to Africa, and there's like black Jesus, or you go to like Asia, they would have like an Asian Jesus. It's like people want to relate to the figure that they're worshiping. And so like oftentimes you'll hear funny little like debates about the melanin concentration, and did Jesus have an epicanthal fold, or like whatever. So it like,
Yeah, if you just remember back to the movie 21 Jump Street, they have a thing where, oh gosh, what's the actor, the fat guy from Superbad, whatever. They show up, and they're in their secret police headquarters, and it's an old Korean church, and they have like a giant picture of Korean Jesus up there, and he's like, oh God, please help me, I don't want to fuck this up. And then Ice Cube comes out, and he goes, hey, stop fucking with Korean Jesus, he's got shit to do, unlike you.
that was, I want to say it was Jonah Hill, but I'm not.
Jonah Hill, that's what it is. Yeah.
It is Jonah Hill. Okay, yeah. But yeah, and like people will create, or people will revere, and like if for whatever reason there was a religion where the god was like an alien octopus, it would probably have a whole lot less human followers than if it was like a person who was very similar and the same. And that has a lot to do with the evolutionary psychology of um, kin preference. I want to say I can't remember the exact genetic thing, but it's like he the example he gave in a book was like, if your house was on fire, here's the things that, and you had the option to save one of these things. Here is the likely order of things in which you would save them. The first one would be your child. The second one would be like your nephew. The third one would be like your dog, or like your neighbor. And then like the fourth one would be your dog. And then the fifth one would be like your house plant. And the sixth one would be like your hammer or something like that. And it's like, the further we get away from like our genetic baseline, the less likely, or the less preference it will have. So I think that the analogy that he gave is like, I am in my own head, I am mentally worth two of my children, eight of my cousins, and like because of like the degrees of separation from one's own like genetic line, and like 50 of my brothers in arms or something like that. And it was just kind of like, it was amusing how the further we get away from the similarity, or the perceived familial, like whatever the heck, like just, let's say you don't care about sports, but you show up at the local sports ball game, you're probably going to cheer for your own team more so than you're going to cheer for whoever the guys are that are coming in from out of town or whatever the hell. Like if I see a fight on MMA and it's like a Mexican dude boxing a white dude, and I know nothing about fighting, like more likely than not, it'll be like, yeah, go white guy, just because like he's white, I'm white, whatever the hell, we'll have like kin selection. Or if it's like an American versus a Russian, skin color be damned, I'll be like, oh yeah, go America. Like, we are likely to cheer and love the thing that is closest and most similar to us, because we sort of kind of perceive it and view it as an extension of ourselves. And you can kind of sort of extrapolate that and presume that in the religious sense as well. Like I, for example, happen to be more fond of Richard Hart than I am of like Charles Hoskins, and I'm more fond of Vitalik than I am of Charles Hoskin. Because like Vitalik is closer to ETH, which is closer to Pulse Chain, which is the thing that I like the most, which is like Richard Hart, and like I don't, like, I kind of peripherally care about Justin Sun of Tron, and I kind of sort of care a little bit about Chengpeng Zhao. He's kind of cool, but like we care most about the things that are associated closely with us. And you could say the same thing about the cryptocurrencies themselves. So anyways, we've been
That's true.
going on about
You get small side tangent, but you mentioned it, where it's like you're trying to cheer for the in-group kind of thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned previously was like people will try to relate to things that look like them, as opposed to like weird stuff that does not relate to them. So in particular, I know it might seem kind of crazy, especially in today's day and age where we live inside the context of our own history, which is that we have a lot of like science fiction and like alien fiction and that kind of stuff. But if you look at the course of human writings over time, science fiction doesn't even start until like the 1850s, 1860s. And at that point, we're getting ready to go into the Industrial Revolution. But even then, the science fiction, I want to say the first one was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That wasn't really like science fiction from like otherworldly stuff. It was science fiction from human creation, which is that humans are creating these kind of like monstrosities, which is Frankenstein's monster. And then ultimately later on, once you get like past 1900s and World War I, you actually start to see like a lot the incorporation of actual like extraterrestrial stuff. And then even then, if you go look at like old crime noir writings where there's like actually like mystical forces going on, it's usually not like extraterrestrial. It's usually like holy and demonic stuff as like culty stuff. And then as we get further on, we start seeing like kind of like the cults that have happened in the last 100 years and whatnot, where you actually like start believing in like Cthulhu and stuff like that. And that's where you really get to that outside stuff. One of a very like napkin note kind of psychology on this one could be that the reason you see this kind of stuff is it's an evolution of human psychology, which is that before the 1800s, it was very much everything was grounded in reality on Earth and stuff like that. And then once you get toward or post World War I, you see kind of the atrocities of humankind. You can start to see nihilism start to build up as a sentiment within the public. And that can start to get to your point where you're starting to relate to stuff out of it. Because now that you're no longer relating to people, you're relating to larger things that are out there that could come down. The aliens and the kind of tentacle monsters, and then the demons from the warp, and then Korn and Nurgle show up, and you get all that stuff.
Korn. Oh wait, no, wait. I was thinking like the band Korn.
Oh, I was
Totally
thinking like Corn, the god of war, blood for the blood
Yeah,
god,
like
skull for the skull throne.
KHORN. Yeah. Blood for
Maybe
the
there's an
blood.
E on there
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Skulls.
Anyways.
The skull throne.
Yes. All right, sir. We covered the history. You want to start getting into? Go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, was there anything that that particularly stuck out to you about this? Because like otherwise I'm just going to kind of chronologically go through the book. Is there some sort of juicy sauce? Was there a thing that you thought about a lot more that stuck out to you in this book? And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it could be something big, could be something small, left, right, up, down. Was there anything?
I already talked about it a little bit, but one of the big, when I was going into the book in the first few chapters, I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, this is probably, it's like the story of humanity, which starts in very barbaric and savage and survival times. I'm like, okay, so we're probably going to see a lot of that influence. But when he starts getting into some, even like the old, like ancient civilizations and stuff, like probably like Roman Empire time and that kind of stuff, which is you actually saw the split that I mentioned previously, which is you see some of the first splits in the way that they portray religious figures between like Old Testament and New Testament, that like female centric or male centric. And I'm not saying it's like the projection of the deity is that gender, but it's more of a reflection of whatever is the advantageous mating strategy at the time, effectively, which is that in the times of harsh reality or survivalship, you definitely need to survive, which categorizes or promotes strength and survival. So that's where you get the more alpha male dominant, versus when you get towards somewhat civilized society, it's actually more about propagation itself and continuing inside of a society. So that's where you get towards that split. And you see, instead of focus on dominance, you see the focus on providership, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the more friendship based than
that stuff that happened a little sooner than I was expecting, and I was like, oh, okay, here are kind of like the early origins of it. So that was one of the things that really stuck out to me.
I wonder how well that times in with the agricultural revolution kind of thing.
Probably does very well, I imagine.
That's what I would think, because when we switch from, because I can't remember what book it was, but we had read a book for a book club before, and it talks about how there was the amount of land needed to sustain one human life was around 100 acres or 1,000 acres or something like that when it was hunter gatherers. And then when we switched to agricultural, or when we realized that, oh, you can get calories not just from animals and like, picking berries and whatnot, but from like mass farming potatoes or mass farming rice or mass farming wheat, then like, oh, now you can support a ton of people with only a little bit of land, and now you have to worry less about like territorial disputes, and now you have more more like teamwork, and we all got to like work together on the farm in order to make this thing work, but we don't have to like spread out, we don't have to go on patrol, we don't have to do the violence, we have to do like a little bit of that, but it allows for like much more specialization and much less jack of all trades, master of none type deal, where the man is like not only the guy that builds the hut but also carries a spear, and the woman like not only like delivers the baby but also does the what, like it allows with the more leverage to pull resources out of the ground and out of the environment, like you can now do the other things. So I think I would be very curious to learn that supports the switch from the dominant god to the more prestigious god, from the masculine god to the more like paternal caring, like from the war to the friendship. I bet that lead lines up pretty well.
It makes sense to me.
I like it. Okay, so let's go into the next part. So we've covered the sort of kind of the thesis. So chapter 2 is about God and war. So I have some questions here from ChatGPT, and I haven't gone over them. So I'm just kind of we're kind of spitballing it live right now. Do you think that religiously motivated violence is rooted more in biology or culture?
I think it's probably more of a cultural thing, which is that the main difference between us and the animals is that we have prefrontal cortexes that are able to rationalize and justify things. And I think that when you start to see the formations of even small cultures, like small groups, tribes, that kind of level of stuff, you start to see collective negotiation, you start to see the creation of law and order, that kind of thing. But then you still see tribal fighting amongst the other outgroups. So once those get a little bit larger, or you even get to the point where you're having division amongst yourselves, the way that religion was framed in the book is that there's two ways it can help you. It can either give you justification to go to war, or it can give you motivation inside of warfare, which is that you're either saying that we have to go fight these people for X reason, which is they've desecrated the Holy Land. We have to go reclaim it in honor of our God. Otherwise, we might get smited, or just like we have to do it because we are the ones that are chosen to conquer and that kind of stuff. And then conversely, it's the other side, which is like inside combat itself, which is that psychological standing or kind of the fitness of you. It's the ability to like hypnotize yourself to like perform better, ignore pain, push through things, go beyond your normal limits, that kind of stuff. It's that like self-hypnosis kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think when fighting was more common, like back in like the real days of like savagery and like barbarianism and stuff, that kind of thing could either be good justification or good motivation inside of the fight. And I think that's kind of the track record that we see through the survivors of this very warlike period.
Well, I gotta push back a little bit. I don't think the fighting ever stopped. I think the fighting scaled up. I think that the fighting went from like little small skirmishes between, tribes into now we have the Crusades, where it's essentially like men vying for power and using religious reasoning to justify, like they realize like, oh, if I play to everyone's notions of like morality and religion, then I can go and claim this cool land, and then I can be the top dog, and then I can be the thing closest to the godlike figure, the alpha male, the winner top G, whatever. You know, you can be the closest by that by riding on the coattails of the religious stuff. So I think that, I'll agree with your synopsis that it's probably cultural, but I think that the strive for dominance in the like the high testosterone men that find their way up to that climb their way up, or like they climb by they've got knives in each hands, and they're stabbing everybody to make their way up the pyramid. You know, that's my little notion. But I think that the violence never stopped. I think that the violence just scaled up as people's ability to conduct violence and also make more people and also like grow their economy of creation scaled as well. So like now we have, I would say that at this point in time in Earth, we have the most peace from a, like, if you look at the percentage of people alive versus the percentage of people who are physically like fighting for survival all the time. I would say we have the highest percentage of not fighting, but we still have the most amount of um like numbers of death, and that's I think it's just a scaling thing.
I agree. I think you have two really good points there. Number one is scale of warfare. Scale of warfare has absolutely increased when it comes to population size and technological, and also the ability to communicate across the globe. So if you want to take it historically, like back in the like even the BC era, it was a lot of like you see the Roman Empire conquering a lot, and the way that they're able to do that is they have the legions that are under command of the generals that even go out with maybe some of the emperors or rulers at the time, but they're very much disconnected from the homeland. They're out conquering. They're able to do that, and then eventually wherever they go conquer, they establish new kind of like city-state areas that have some sort of like governmental rule, but is ultimately underneath the Roman Empire. So you see that scale there, but it's able to get large, but it's slow to do, and it's also hard to control continuously just because speed of technology for communications is very low. You need messengers and that kind of stuff. As we get further into kind of like the thousands and like 1500s, we start to see the rise of Genghis Khan, who really utilizes horse and archery and siege technology to move quick, strike wide, and then conquer large areas of the steppes over there. And then once we get into kind of like the Renaissance or the 1400s, 1500s, we see a little bit more technological advancement, but at the same time, we're still very much like agriculturally based. So it's cities and it's somewhat nations going at after each other. But then really the next big step that we get is during the Industrial Revolution. That's where you start to see mass production of weapons. You can actually see the progression of technology change. It's why we went from back in the day, you had a club, and then we went to the Bronze Age, and you see chariots and stuff, and then we get to the medieval age, and you see large suits of armor, and then once gunpowder is invented, it negates those effectively, so then we scale back down, and now in modern day, you're pretty much the only armor, or as World War I, World War II, there was no body armor, you just carried your kit with you, and now modern day, we have ballistic plates and that kind of stuff, so the progression of technology changes. And then notably for the Industrial Revolution, World War I was the very first large-scale industrial war that we saw. We also saw all the cross-webbing of different treaties throughout Europe as a reason to get multiple nation states against multiple other nation states simultaneously. And then when we get to World War II, we see that in full force, which is slight increase in technology, because we now have World War I was very early flight. World War II was like, okay, we've been flying for 40 years. We figured out how to do this pretty good. But at this point, it really was kind of like the scale of warfare changed to as much as the largest nations in the world can muster, pretty much purely to military forces. And then if you remember back to the book Sovereign Individual, one of the ways that they contextualize the Cold War in that era was the competing versions of different governmental systems being able to wage warfare against each other, which is that the communists was an economy that was centrally planned and driven pretty much purely for the production of warfare, versus capitalism was done for the increase of the capital markets and then siphoning off of that to get their war chest. And you see those forces go at it there.
Mm-hmm. What's really cool about the two of them is like in the communistic one, it's like you take all of the resources and use it to do the war thing, but like the resource generation capability slows down. So like for those of you guys that have played like civilization games or whatever, it's like a lot of them, if you don't build the economy to sustain the warfare, once the warfare engine breaks down, then it's like, oh, now I can't do war anymore, and it's like, fiddlesticks, like I've done bamboozled myself. But in the capitalistic one, where like the economy builds itself and it has enough momentum that like leeching off of that economy in order to make war, like it allows the war to be sustainable. It's like you have a much more like capable long-term system. So it's kind of funny, just again, it all boils down to immediate gratification or delayed gratification, like the communistic one's the immediate. And then
you can take from that standpoint, or a different analogy you could give is the idea of the Laffer curve. Do you remember what that one is?
I have no idea.
The Laffer curve it's on a chart. Imagine it's kind of a sideways bubble. It's the idea that the amount of your tax rate, it also determines how much tax revenue there is. And then at a certain point, if you tax high enough, it's actually going to start decreasing. So you could say that the communists went like really high on the tax rate, but they were seeing the diminishing gains from it, versus the capitalism was the other way, which is lower tax rates up to a degree in order to get enough taxes, but allow the economy to keep going. The Laffer curve. There you go.
Here we go. Yeah. The theoretical relationship between tax rates and local tax revenue collected. 0 is nothing. And at 100, it's also 0. So like, this is the ideal taxing zone, maximizing the tax revenue. And if you tax them too much, though, then it's like people just stop making that. That's pretty cool. The Laffer curve. I like that.
Yeah, I know it's a very big generalization comparing the capitalism, communism, warfare kind of stuff to say it's just taxes, considering it's the whole system itself. But just from if you compare it to amount of market capture to warfare output, that's one way you could look at it.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. We've got some comments from the folks at home. I know Agent J was talking, and I can't remember what the thing was about, but do a quick little shout out to the folks. We've got Mix, aka Jay Zole, says, "Nice work, guys. Thank you, good sir. Glad we could have you with us as well." KRJ Crypto says, "Hello, friends. Hello to you, KRJ. Good to see you, broski." We've got Wes coming in here. Sup, gang. I would read too, but sadly, me no smart. What's interesting about that is that reading will fix that problem. So like you seem to be stuck in a recursive loop here. So if you just read more, then you will fix your own problem, good sir. So start at the beginning. Take a look at our stream where we sort the books in a tier list, and then maybe start at the best tier, and then move forward from there. But Agent J was saying go beyond plus ultra Sarah ni muo muokoe. What is that? What does this mean? Is this having something to do with...
That is an anime reference. Do you happen to know which one?
Nah.
My Hero Academia. It's like the superhero anime manga that came out probably 10 years ago. I think it just finished its run like a year or two ago, but pretty much it's like following aspiring students, and there's like superpowers are a lot more common in the world. One of the most popular professions that you can have is to be a government sanctioned hero to actually combat other people using superpowers. And one of the things that they say for the school motto is go beyond plus ultra, which is like you got to like really, really push it. Like in times of crisis, especially, you gotta push harder than you've ever pushed before.
Push it to the limit by Festa. Okay.
Now, if you don't have to see the whole thing, but even if you just go watch a little bit of season 1, it has a really good culminating arc where the main like hero in the society, his name is All Might, and this is one of the things that he's carried with him because he was a UA student, which is the school UA, and then he's just like stupid strong, and he's like against like some pretty bad odds, and he's fighting. His real ability is just to be like super strong, and he just uses punches and even like uses to the extreme that he creates like wind pressure off of it and stuff. And then he fights a villain who has damage absorption, and he's like, oh crap, this might be a perfect counter for me. And he's like, you know what, we're just gonna buckle down, bite the mouthpiece extra hard, and just see if we can power through this dude. And just goes absolutely ballistic. The music composition for it is also perfect, and it gives you just a really hype moment where you see him fighting this guy. It's awesome.
Okay. So I wish I knew what this chat was in reference to, Agent J. It was 10 minutes ago, but it was probably when we were talking about warfare, something like that.
It might have been in reference. Yeah, it might have been in reference to when I was saying that religion can help inside of battle, which is that if it's the self-hypnosis thing, because that's kind of what it is in the show, which is like really grit down and buckle down and get after it.
Okay. Push it to the limit, boys. Go get it. We've also, speaking of going and getting it, we've also got Crypto Sloth coming in. Yo. What's up, Crypto Sloth? Good to see the best dentist in the crypto space. Glad we could have you with us. Dr. Crypto Sloth, I might add. Excuse me for
Dr. Two Slayer.
Thing there. Okay. We've got an explanation from Agent J, by the way. He says, season 3, Endeavor Redemption arc, Rebirth of the Phoenix. From death out comes the new number 1. So yes, the Rebirth of the Phoenix. That is a good story. What is it called? Not trope. That's the wrong word.
It's a trope, an archetype.
Trope. Okay. I thought trope had a negative
trope
connotation to it.
No, doesn't have to.
Well, anyways, it's the Rebirth of the Phoenix. Out of death comes the new number 1. That reminds. So you mentioned anime. The only anime that I know is One Punch Man, Berserk, and and Attack on Titan. So that's like my super normie, uninformed anime experience there. But I've heard good things about My Hero Academia. Oh, I guess I also know One Piece, but I haven't watched it as anime. So there you go. Ed Crypto Sloth is happy to be here with the boys. What's up? Good to see you, broski. Very good to see it. Zenith, you were talking about technology earlier, and I wanted to bring up this graph. We don't have it's not much to dwell on, but I remember when you were talking about technological advancement. This is something that popped into my head. So this is from oh shoot, what is the Facebook group? I want to say it's Scientific Graphs confused as shit posts or something like that. But it talks about scientific advancement through the through the time, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on up until a whole bunch of religious, like, we're going to be the only ones that get to know things. And then there was the burning of Alexandria Library. There was destruction of all sorts of stuff as people were traipsing about the world under like the guise of religious conquest. And like in reality, like you could call it whatever you want. Like, I don't know why they were doing it, but I do know that a lot of knowledge and information got destroyed in the process, and humanity went through a pretty boring and bleak time between about, what was it, 500 Anno Domini all the way up to, it looks like about the 1500s, 1400s, something like that. So that's when the Dark Ages stopped and the Renaissance began. And then, we got Age of Enlightenment, that brings us up to where we're at today, where we got this crazy peak. But it is interesting. One of the things the book talks about is how Islam was actually one of the things that kept a lot of old information alive. And then at some point, Islam and Christianity kind of did a switcheroony, where Islam moved more in the direction of like, nope, gotta follow the faith and can't think outside of it. Information is bad. And Christianity took over the, like, oh, we're gonna make more hospitals. We're gonna that's where hospitals originally came from, was it was like nunneries and religious places. The oldest nurses were all nuns. And I think there's a correlation in the name there, which is just kind of interesting if you think about the stereotypes of nuns versus the stereotypes of nurses in today's day and age. But I'm not going to go there. We
Very different day and
this is
age.
yes, this was a fun little graph though that I wanted to pull up that just reminded
To
me
make
of.
this one even a little bit more fun for you, do you see
Oh, yeah.
that section where it goes from 1000 BC to 500 AD, where you have that rise and then a sharp decline?
Mhm.
Copy and paste that part onto the chart to the left, which is that has also happened multiple times in history. What I'm referring to is called the Bronze Age collapse. This is where we see the death of the Babylonian Empire, and we also see the death of the ancient Egyptian Empire. At this
Yeah.
point, they actually have large, especially the Egyptians, they have large governmental structures to actually manage economies and society and stuff, and like mass produce food for their entire civilization.
Mhm.
And then this is also where we see copper being created, or bronze, excuse me. To make bronze, you need tin and copper. Both minerals are very exclusive by region. So it also meant that there was a lot of trade around that Mediterranean area so that they could get these complex resources, create them together. This is where you get chariots and stuff like that. And the Bronze Age collapse is this thing where we actually see a high degree of what's the term for being able to read? Literacy. We see high literacy in society. We see large expansive societies with large agricultural bases and high technology from metallurgy perspective. And then all of it disappears. All of it. Gone from the entire Mediterranean area. And the only reference that we have is that there's this idea that there's these sea people that show up and just kind of like just decimate the land and then just disperse and kind of go away. And then for literally like 500 years, you see literacy drop to almost zero. You see copper no longer in production, and you see wide scale agriculture also just go away. The Bronze Age collapse. It's not very well documented, because it's super old, but also it's kind of one of the lesser known things. But I mean, to your point, yeah, history is very cyclical. There's rises and falls all the time.
Yeah, which is why the retention of information is one of the coolest. Being a librarian is one of the most like species longevity type things you can do. So it's why it's such a shame when you see things like the Georgia Guidestones being destroyed. It's like, oh, come on, man! Like, what the fuck, you know? Or you see like book burnings and Fahrenheit 451 kind of stuff, and 1984 of we must destroy the information that it never existed, blah de da de da, or like why when you're in history class in school you only learn like your culture's history perspective of the world. You don't learn about like what China was doing during the Korea War, right? You only learn about like, oh, they're bad guys and America's good and we're going up there and we're going to cross the DM, not the DMZ, the whatever the hell parallel. And like perspective is important. And the more information that exists and is spread around, the more we have people having these conversations, putting stuff up on YouTube, putting things in the blockchain, right? Like the better off that we can be. So I remember there was a dude on TikTok that got, and I only heard about this from a third party source, is like, oh yeah, there was a dude on TikTok that was teaching people how to reverse engineer gasoline out of plastic, because most plastic is some sort of petroleum product, which means you can mess with the atoms and you turn one thing into another. You're turning your oil into a kayak. Cool beans. That's why, by the way, you can't just put gasoline in any old plastic container. It has to be like because it'll melt it, or not melt it, but it will atomically reconfigure it to where it doesn't exist anymore. When you throw a styrofoam cup into gasoline and it dissolves, it's like that's what's happening right there. Styrofoam is like heavily petroleum based, and so you put the one thing in the other, and it goes. Anyways, this dude on TikTok he was like showing people how to take plastic and turn it back into fuel. And anyways, he got taken down and shut down. But like, imagine that information got taken away from him and put on the blockchain somewhere, put into some NFT or whatever the hell device, and then thrown on the Bitcoin network, or thrown on the Ethereum network, or on the Pulse chain, or the Binance Smart chain, or whatever the hell. Like storing information, I personally think is a really cool and awesome thing, and it stops things like this Dark Age collapse. It stops things like the Bronze Age collapse in a sense. Like, only recently have have uh have have we learned that the way to create Roman concrete is by just adding more lye into the concrete. That's how you create self-healing concrete. Whenever water pours into the concrete and the concrete cracks, it also dissolves the lye, and the lye goes and fills the crack, and then now there's no more crack in the concrete. So like, this was like unknown information for the last like almost 2,000 years. And only just recently was it refigured. Oh, and also using salt water for the generation of concrete in order to get concrete to dry when it's underwater, and other such things. So it's like there's all sorts of cool things that comes with information, and I like to think that we're doing that in some way, shape, or form in this book club podcasting. So like whenever we do a book club, I'm like giving myself this warm little pat on the back. It's like I'm doing my part to keep the information going and to spread the info out to other people. Shout out to West. He would read, but he's not doing it, so he gets to listen to us talk about it, which is the next best thing, I suppose. Right? If people never think, then they never think. Anyways, we've been going on this tangent for a very long time. We've also been joined by Mr. Moondog, who says, "Howdy, rowdies. My heart cage rises and falls with every breath, literally, mechanically, and poetically." I'm not sure if that's a word, but it's good to see you, Mr. Moondog. Welcome to the stream, broski. Glad that we could have you with us tonight. Um, let's go back to the book. The book that we're covering, for those of you that didn't know, is called Alpha God, and it's a really good book. The next section of the book is about like sex and jealousy and control, and how to do a hard transition into a hard topic. But like something that a lot of religions do, and a lot of religious people who follow religious ideology do, is there's a heavy focus on the regulation of female sexuality. And so um the theory is that this is connected to reproductive strategy. So, Zenith, why do you think that so many religions regulate female sexuality, and how does it connect to reproductive strategy?
I mean, I think largely what it is reproductive strategy. If we're looking at this through the historical text or context that the book is looking through it, which is that we have very early, savage, brutal days, meaning that survival and continuing your legacy and continuation of your species is very important. So pretty much everything that takes away from that is going to it's going to put you at a disadvantage to have survival. Anything that creates an advantage for it is going to pretty much be propagated down, which is survival of the fittest, effectively. So if you have a sexual strategy that does not actually allow to continue your tribe and your thinking, it's going to go away. If you have a strategy that does that, it's going to continue and it's going to carry on. So when it comes to the psychological or the evolutionary psychology of sexual mating strategies, it's pretty much the idea that having the best ability to ensure that reproduction happens and that it's tenable and sustainable. I think that's largely what we see. So this is where we see things with, I guess, sexual possessiveness is the way that my book notes here are putting it, which is that it's punishing infidelity or sexual sin, which is that ensuring that as a dude, you know that you have offspring so that you're more willing to take care of it because you know that it's yours and it's reproducing your lineage as opposed to someone else.
Yeah, it's like the anti-cuckoldry.
Pretty much, yeah. So again, one of the things that the book talks about is the virginity obsession. Well, back in the day, there's no paternity tests. It's only based on guarantees of, this is the only person that this woman has slept with. Therefore, if it's you, then it's pretty much 100% chance of success for you. That kind of stuff. So if that's the strategy you're going for, then having either social or religious stigmas that help solidify that within the tribe, the group, whatever it is, then that is going to allow you to be successful as the individual trying to procreate. And as the society, it's going to allow for some sort of law and order or some sort of rule set that people are expected to adhere to in order to continue on survival.
And it's not just you as an individual, it's also you being the summation of all of your genes that are creating these chemical impulses in your head to be like, hey, don't waste your resources on a kid that's not yours, which is where like the whole cuckoldry thing comes from, and like the whole sexual jealousy stuff comes from. It's all about, are you going to invest a ton of your life into something that means something genetically speaking, or into something that doesn't mean anything genetically speaking? This isn't to put a morality judgment on raising other people's kids. This is to put a genetic judgment on it. Whereas like the people with the genes historically that favored their own genes survived better and longer, and they all of their efforts went into something that meant those genes could survive, because at the end of the day, like, we're just a whole bunch of atoms and DNA code and all that stuff, and all of those things at the at the existential level want to continue and make more of itself. And so the stuff that does that successfully is the stuff that wins. And that's how we get, masculine jealousy, um, and mate guarding and other things.
Yeah, to take this to the next step that the book talks about. Again, disclaimer real quick. We're talking about stuff from back in the day that is not part of modern society and is very much illegal and stuff like that. But at the same time, though, they do talk about things like female submission, violence against women, notably like rape and that kind of stuff, and then also wanting women to submit to them. Again, for the conversation, remove emotionality from it. Just trying to break down the logistics of how the operations worked and then understand why people did things the way that they did. So, all right, we talked about you're trying to carry out your own genealogy. How do you do that? Well, you try to maintain control over it some way. You can either do that through religious ceremony. This is where we see kind of like marriage come about. Or you can also just do it through more physical forces, which is physically controlling people, physically restraining people, ensuring that people that do get out of line are punished for it in some sort of way. If you want a good example of this that's more fictional, think about Mad Max Fury Road. This is when you have, Immortal Joe. He is in the Citadel and he has the women, his concubines that are under his control. The way that he does that is he literally keeps them walled off in the garden and then also puts the chastity belt with like the teeth for the crotch area so that if anyone dares try to get in there, they're not getting out, if you know what I'm saying. That kind of stuff. And then also the ones that run away, sends the people after them to either recapture or eliminate them because they're no longer adhering to this thing that the alpha of this society has created to try to have a monopoly on sexual reproduction, that kind of stuff. So we see that in the old times, which is where you kind of get the stuff, which is like barbarians and raiding tribes try to eliminate the men, capture the women. Any existing lineage from those women are eliminated so that they can recreate their own lineage and removing the things that are not theirs. It is a very ugly part of
take away the resource consumption that comes with that as well.
Also that for sure. Again, this is a realistic look at human history. It is something that has happened. I'm not saying it's moral. I'm just saying that this was a evolutionary strategy that has succeeded due to, obviously, there are certain things here that logistically worked. Therefore, it was continued to a point where it was no longer needed. That kind of stuff.
And in today's society, you see this when it comes to the single mother dating scene and the preference of men in positions of attractiveness to choose to or choose not to mate, select, and pair bond with women who have had kids before and women who haven't had kids before. So this is like from a genetics perspective and a preference perspective, it's this is why and men are K selective and women are R selective. I might have those two wrong. One is like quantity, one is quality, which kind of like leads me into the next topic of discussion that like men
Before we get
Go
too
ahead.
away from this one, let's tie it back to, so this is what's going on in history.
Yeah.
During this part of history, what are some of the religious figures that we found? So we're talking about obviously sexual possessiveness and polygyny, and then also virginity obsession. So if you want to look back to the ancient Greeks, Zeus is a fantastic example of this, which is that he is the big bad guy that runs around and sticks his dick in whatever he wants, gods and humans alike.
Mm-hmm.
But he's able to do it because he's the godlike figure, the deity. Therefore, all the Greeks are just like, yep, that's what he does. They don't really say any judgment about it. They're like, yep, that's just what happens.
That's a good example. You could also look into the Bible and take a look at Solomon and or also King David. Moses,
Correct.
I think, had like 10 wives or something like that. The common thing that you see in all of these like archetypical dudes is one like dominant type personality, like not necessarily violent, but capable of violence and capable of commanding large amounts of power, whether that power is financial or it is like militaristic or it is economic or something along those lines. And then having a huge swath of what people at the time consider to be sought after women, which is generally the virginic ones and not the ones that already have, their own genetic lineage. And if they do have the genetic lineage, then it's like, kind of got to get rid of that before adopting them and pulling them into the harem or into the tribe or something like that. So there's a lot of examples, and like Genghis Khan had a whole bunch of wives. Like I think it's one in every 200 Asians is something of a descendant of Genghis Khan. Like you look at kings, you look at a lot of the popes in the back in the day. You look at a lot of like the wealthier, more powerful people. A lot of them pretty much always have a lot of these same characteristics over and over again. And then you look at like the religious figures that are in charge of, or Muhammad even I think had a whole bunch of wives and stuff. So
Yeah, to tackle this from the other side of the coin, though, which is that if we're going after the polygyny route, which is that polygyny as a survival tactic from the male perspective, you are dominant in the area and you can have your choice of whatever you want, and you have the ability to hold on to these things by force and by working with other people around you to ensure these things happen. The other side I'm talking about from the female side, which is that if you are trying to ensure that your lineage is carried on, you want to give them the best chance of survival. Who is the best chance of survival? Whoever is currently at the top of the survival pyramid at the time, which is where you see many women are willing, or even if they're unwilling, forced into this kind of deal. Those are the people that do end up propagating multiple times over for many generational kind of stuff. So that's explaining how this strategy succeeded. Again, it's not saying the strategy is moral. I'm just saying that this is how you trace the path. This is how you get to the end point.
I want to take us back to the K selective and the R selective, and this kind of takes us to back to the whole like prestigious god and the dominant god, the masculine, the feminine, the quantity versus the quality. So like when you look at men and women from like a 30,000 foot view, you generally get women prefer quality, men prefer quantity in almost every like broad bell curve-ish kind of statement. Like men like having lots of things, doing lots of stuff, and going in and doing a whole bunch of things, and women like having really good things, really good feelings, really good times, really good men, etc., etc. A lot of this has to do with genetics and the way that the reproductive system works. Women only have a limited amount of eggs. Men have a near infinite amount of reproductive sperm. Like if you look at it from the reproductive position only, like 100 women and one man equals 100 babies. 100 men and one woman does not equal 100 babies. So there's a cost for each gender when it comes to reproduction, and then there's well, I guess just a cost is the best way to put it. So women will be much more selective and much more preferential about who they mate guard and or not mate guard, who they mate select with, because it's a high toll on the physical health, and like you can only do it one time for X, Y, and Z amount of period, and you're going to make a huge investment, and it's going to put you in a weakened state for a long period of time. So that's why like women tend to like try and find a man who has high violence potential, so that way she can protect her during her 9 months to year and a half period of raising this little floppy meat stick that's going to turn into a beautiful human one day, right? You need the protection for a long period of time. You need the resource gathering potential, so wealth for lack of a better word, the ability for the dude to go get bananas and bring kills back to the tent or back to the cave, or have a whole bunch of money in the bank, something along those lines, because the woman's not going to be able to do it for this extended period of time. And what was the other one? Okay. Oh, and also like there's the loyalty aspect of like, oh, he's going to stick around, he's not going to fly away, he's a person of high moral character, or he's like like he's going to invest. So it looks like you have provisioning, protection, and parental investment. Those are like the three big ones. And anyone who's familiar with Roll of Tomasi or the Manosphere will have heard those things before. So those are the things that women select for, whereas men, they select for more quantity, because you're not necessarily guaranteed that the child is yours. You're not necessarily guaranteed that that one of the things is going to work. It's almost like you look at like in the military, where you've got like snipers and you've got machine gunners. You've got accuracy and you've got like just spread the things everywhere and hope something works. When women have children, they know that the children is theirs. When men have children, it's like, pretty sure it's mine, or something along those lines. Yada yada yada. But there's like there's a lot of investment that both parents and mates make in that. But anyways, that was the general like gist that I wanted to go over. And
So we've covered
go ahead.
like warfare, we've covered reproduction. I think to kind of wrap up the rest of the points the book talks about, we have psychological, and then we also psychological and behavioral traits, and then symbolic and ritual traits. So real quick, for the psychological and behavior stuff, there's different kind of things that are projected onto the godlike figures. We have things like having a protector role. This is where the figure serves as like a father figure, offering security, comfort, and existential reassurance. We have a moral legislator, which is that they embody moral codes and they reward obedience and punish disobedience, aka a way to create law and order. Demand for loyalty, jealousy, and vengefulness is required for the exclusive practice or worship of these ones. We have obedience tests, which is their stories of sacrifice and trials to show submission and faith and adherence. And then lastly, we also have devaluation of self, or just like humility, guilt, worthlessness in comparison to perfection, which the religious figure is said to be the perfect, and then you are the imperfect, but you're striving to be perfect. And it's the recognition of the different levels there. Mm-hmm. So do any of those really stand out to you as some big ones that have kind of continued on today?
Can you repeat them in a more brief way?
Yes, protector, moral legislator, a demand for loyalty, obedience tests, and devaluation of self.
And this is in reference to the godlike.
These are psychological and behavioral things that are conveyed through the religious relationship.
Yeah, so these are all sought after traits for men to aspire to. Or are you talking about more of like the follower types, like the followers or the leaders?
Talking about the religious figures themselves, which is that these are the aspects that religious ideas or concepts held by the people they are examples of, or they ask of people.
Yes, as many of those things as you can check off is possible will get you the best result, but like when push comes to shove, like when we're in a wartime event, people want the more dominant masculine type man. When we're in like a peacetime, they want somebody who's more like smooth speaking and like not necessarily as dominant and able to like get everyone to work together and stuff. So it kind of also depends on the scenario. And what's interesting is like the people in power can put those types of they can make those types of things happen. So it's like, oh, if I am the dominant masculine president of the United States and I know my term's coming to an end, if we happen to be a war, the odds of the people voting for me again is much likely higher versus like if I'm a more like peaceful and Jimmy Carter-esque person. He's just the first guy that popped into my head. I'd be behooved to be at peace during the turnover of my time. So the more of those things that you can check off, the better. I don't know. Do you think that one of them outweighs any of the others? Is there one in particular that you think tops the list?
I think you provided a good dichotomy there. So two of them are pretty much kind of counterpoints there. You can either have protector or moral legislator. Protector is very much that warrior's like the wartime spirit kind of thing, versus moral legislator is more of a peacetime kind of thing, which is, are you either trying to... Sure. I think that obviously the protector, wartime, you're trying to fight off the barbarians, you're trying to conquer land for the glory of Rome, you're trying to go do a thing for the reason, versus moral legislator is trying to create structure and law and order, which is that there's a code of conduct or an ethics that you're trying to get everyone in a group to adhere to. So it's more of looking at external threats versus internal threats. I think that the demand for loyalty and the obedience testing, those are interesting religious concepts that I think have almost, those are two in particular that I'm going to be using a good bit when we look at current figures and why they're viewed as religious figures and whatnot. And the demand for loyalty is obviously the jealousy and vengefulness for like trying to go elsewhere. It's trying to keep the group contained and stop your losses, if you will. And then obedience testing is a way that it's requiring sacrifice or requiring some sort of like show of devotion kind of thing. And those are concepts that I think have found their way outside of the religious stuff and kind of into more modern day political ways of doing in-group recognition and stuff like that.
Or maybe bear markets.
Or that's a great example of those specifically, which is it's the demand for loyalty, the bear market comes, Or even if you just look at meme coins when people are just trying to even get off the ground, it's like, nobody sell, we're all holding, nobody sell, GameStop's going to the moon.
Yep.
If you get out, you got paper hands, you don't have diamond hands, that kind of stuff. And then that also kind of works very nicely, especially when you're talking about financial stuff, which is the obedience testing, which is you're testing the obedience and adherence to the group by, if you're on the blockchain, theoretically you could verify that wallets still hold things. Or if you're just going from the financial thing, it's like you have to be with it. You got to take another $100 and throw it in there. You gotta stay the course. You got to do all that kind of stuff. So again, I think these started off as like very much religious concepts that have been applied to out-group and in-group adherence or separation.
Man, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a friend when we were talking about like Hexaco and things, and she was saying that it's like, man, I need to make sure that I do the most stuff possible to increase the value of this token, so that way if I decide to exit, then the work of my getting people to learn about this thing and love this thing, like that, the total amount of that work surpasses the amount of money that I decide to cash out of the system. It was like, from a morality perspective, it's like, if I just buy the token and I don't do anything and then I get out, then I'm like a net extractor from the system. Which, like, when you correlate it to the religious stuff, it's more of like an apostate or a or excommunicado or something like that. And it kind of like shits on the idea of the religion, the community itself. But if your sum total is, I have added more value to the community than I have, cashed out or something, then it's like net total positive. You could take like whoever the guys are that created the Highest of Stakes movie, right? However much that cost, and however much that like excited people, and however much that brought people together, there's a quantifiable dollar value to that got people to input into the system, or that got them talking about it, or that, like, there's a money spent and money generated. And if the money generated is higher than the money spent, and you look at it as like a business, then this business is sustainable in the long term. But if you look at it as money spent is less than money extracted, then it's like, oh, this person is a net drain on the ecosystem, and would therefore be like a religious persona non grata, or like, the person to be kicked out. So this is something that a lot of people probably got to struggle with.
Exactly. Your analysis there makes perfect sense. And I think the way to really like explain it at a larger level is that you're using different lenses to analyze situations, which is that from the standpoint of like the guys that made the Higher Stakes movie, it's like, okay, if you want to go from like the human psychology of religion thing and trying to do like in-group and out-group identification, it is that this thing was created to help further the group that you claim to be a part of. It is part of your devotion to this group or this concept or this figure or whatever. But then there's also the other thing that we touched on there briefly, which is like, yes, that's one way to look at it, but there's also different aspects to everything. And another one was the economic lens, which is that these are people that are spending money with a hope of a return on investment in some sort of other way. So yeah, a lot of things are obviously very multifaceted. Nothing is ever super cut and dry, unfortunately. But these are great explanations to kind of start undoing and like peeling back the layers and understand why people do the things that they do. It could either be the psychological, it could be the economic, it could be some sort of other thing that you care about, even like physical, which is like need based.
Yeah, man. I don't mean to have derailed your original question, which was about the psychology and stuff.
No, we're just trying to make sure we brush through all the topics before we get to our analysis.
Okay. Well, yeah, go to the final one, because I think we started a little bit early there.
Our final batch here is they talk about symbolic and ritual traits. So they're talking about here is that a religion can promote dominance rituals. This is where you things like kneeling, chanting, fasting, circumcision, other practices to show submission or adherence to the ideology. Another one, this is a little more fun. It's big hats and costumes, which is that religious leaders wear very exaggerated regalia, echoing, if you want to go for the monkey brain idea, it is echoing primates' genital display. It's you're the king baboon. You have the biggest hat, so you're going to stand up and show off that you have the biggest hat.
The lion with the biggest mane, man. The gorilla that like postures up the best and like beats his chest the most. the peacock with the most beautiful plumage. Like
Hmm.
there it is funny how how the wearing the big hats and Richard like used to wear a top hat. It's like it's so funny how perfect it is. Mystery always wore a hat. Like think about the dudes in the 80s metal rock bands with the big hair and how like awesome it looked. Like David Bowie in the Labyrinth. Like it's like, "Oh, that's a good fucking look, bro." Or the
ZZ
large
Top with the giant beards.
Yes, the large beards, exactly. And like one of the things that it talked about is like the absolute like disrespect it is for like a man to grab another man's beard. And one of the things that happened in the book is like the Christian missionaries were like going around and like cutting off Native Americans' beards and like fucking doing all sorts of other crazy things that we don't need to mention. But there's all sorts of it basically boils down to a lot of the things in this like psychological evaluation of religious ideology or people's interpretation of religion and whatnot. Like it has a very 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 large focus on like you must submit to the person who is in charge if you're going to survive inside of this group, inside of this religion, inside of this culture, inside of this whatever the hell. Whether it's like you go to Catholic mass and you stand up, then you kneel, then you sit down, then you kneel, then you stand up, then you kneel, then you kneel, then you go and receive the Eucharist, and then like there's all these different like rituals of submission. Like think of any time anyone prays, it's like bow your head to pray, and it's like I am now in the like this the submissive pose or something like that. It's like and then whoever's in charge, like they'll like puff up or they'll be bigger or they'll be like my children, blah da da da. I'm in this like I'll hug you and love you, like come to me, my flock. I'm your protector provider. Or it's like no, you better fucking kneel. You kiss the king's rings
Kiss the
or
ring.
kiss the rings, baby. Like that's the man. It was so crazy, so cool. Good example there.
I got two more for you. Two more
Yeah.
for symbolic and ritual rites.
Uh-huh.
Another one is territorial markers. Temples, altars, and holy lands reinforce and divine claims over physical spaces. AKA, we have the biggest cathedral around. You can see it from the entire city. It's marking your claim on the territory via the skyscape. And then the last one we have is reputation signaling. This is things like public piety, martyrdom, displays of sacrifice, that mere status signaling to other people in the group. So examples of this would be, it's more of signaling to your group that you are adhering to your thing, and also letting other people know that you are a part of this group, and therefore you could theoretically gain some sort of reputational gain from it. This is going to be stuff like Jewish people wear yarmulkes, and the Catholics on Ash Friday do the ash cross and wear it around, that kind of stuff. It's more of the signaling. It's the public shows, not for the deity, but for the other people in the group.
So we can identify our tribes people. It's like the military uniforms or
Exactly.
Things of that
Again,
nature.
it goes back to survival technique, which is that if you're going to work with people, you got to understand who you're working with. One of the easy ways you can do that is through the signaling and the rituals and that kind of stuff, which is that everybody shows up to your religious thing or whatever. And you're like, cool, I see you, I see you, I see you, you see me. All right, cool. We all know each other. Or it's like, I might be in a different city, but I can be like, there's a church. They have my symbol. Therefore, I know that there are other people there. If something bad's going to happen, maybe I go there and there's people willing to help me.
Yeah. Or perhaps a flag on a pole. If you're in a foreign country and you go visit the U.S. Embassy, it's like, aha, that's a place where I can be like safe. Red team versus blue team. Exactly. Moondog.
Team blue team.
Yep. We had a comment here from Moondog I want to cover. Sometimes I hear people blame. Oh wait, no, not this one. Goodness. There we go. Moondog, you're typing too fast for me, bro. Costumes and rituals.
Killing
This
it.
isn't a religious phenomenon. It is a human/mammalian one. Evidence any New York City club Saturday night, or a populated wild watering hole somewhere in the Saharan wild, for what it's worth. Yes, absolutely, broski. It is a very common mammalian thing. Definitely not religious only. And but like the implications of like the person with the biggest hat is the king. So it's like fucking Doug Dimmadome, right, from the Fairly Odd Parents. It's like with the
Dimmadome,
frickin'
owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome.
Yep, there you go. Exactly. So it's like it's such a good analogy. So perfect. I love it. All right.
Tell you what, can you hit some chats real quick? I need
Yes.
a reload. We are out.
Yes. Get your reload of the beerskis and things. I've got some starred chats from earlier, and it looks like we've been joined by a lovely as well. So let's go ahead and rock and roll through the chats. We've been joined by Mr. Tin Top, who rocked in, oh man, about 30 minutes ago. Hello, Tin Top. What's up, broski? Glad that we could have you tonight. What's up, Hexikins, is what he says. I'll tell you what's up. We're doing book club, broski, and we're talking about Alpha God, and it's a good fucking book. And I really, really, again, guys, like I can't stress this enough. Don't focus on the religion. Don't get caught up in the initial reaction that one probably has to this book. Focus on the evolutionary psychology and that sort of stuff. We got a comment, the first comment from Mr. Moonpilled Rational Optics. How dare you, Zenith, push such a moral message onto us? I didn't show up to be lectured. Exactly. So we're here to lecture you, Mr. Moondog, and tell you exactly how you should be, because we are the priests and you are the congregation. So bow your heads and pray for the blessing of the DJ Round Table.
Oh my gosh.
Or pop up on the next Whiskey Wednesday, and you too can be a priest.
Oh, what you really need to do is I need to start performing some rituals to the machine spirits of my computer so it stops blue screening. Need to light some incense, maybe drip some oil on top of it. You know, we're gonna please the machine spirits.
Yep. And if you have Windows 10, sorry guys, it's going no more support in the near future. So hey, get off of Windows anyways. Just kidding. I use Windows, so what do I know? We've also been joined by Tam Tam, who says, hello, my lovelies. Hello to you too, Tam Tam. Glad that we could have you with us today. Shout out to another good religious worker in the Hexico religion, in the pulse chain religion. So there we go. We love you too, Tam. She loves all of us. Excellent and fantastic. Tam Tam, Hexkin University professor, auditing book club. Oh, we're being audited now. Uh-oh. We better be on
are we up for a review?
Our
jobs and we get our contracts extended depends on this. Oh gosh,
man. Jinkies.
We're not tenured yet.
We're not tenured. Yeah, we can get we could get let go. If Tab says book club is slashed, then I guess we just got to find a new place to do it. So there you go. It's good to have you, Tam. It's good to have you, Tin Top, Moondog. Man, Moondog and Moonpill, they've been going at it. You guys had some good conversation about paternity and things of that nature. So if you guys haven't read through that, then that's a good little thing there. Fucking my favorite part at the very end, the male meat stick shoved in a tooth trap. They had pictures. Yes, this is in reference to the to the contraceptive.
Mad Max Fury Road.
Yep. Stay away from the bad stuff, ladies and germs. Don't go about forcing things on people that don't want it, and you might not get your meat stick stuck in a tooth trap. So there you go.
Don't get captured by the Drukhari. Don't fall to Slanesh. You'll be okay.
Yep.
Probably not.
There you go.
We might be better.
Excellent. All right. So where were we? So we had finished the analysis of the book, and now it's time to take the analysis and apply it to the crypto space, which is what this whole book club was more or less.
It was the intent. Tell you what, I want to start it off with a softball. Not a crypto guy, but someone that people did kind of speak about in religious ways. That is Steve Jobs.
Ooh.
So, Will, when I tell you about Steve Jobs, what do you remember? What was he like? What did he convey to the people?
So Steve Jobs, I would say, was probably conveyed arrogance, and you do this because it's good for you, and because I said so, and because I know better than you, and I'm actually right, but you don't find out that I'm right until long after. So it's like I would say that Steve Jobs falls into the dominant male archetypical category, very similar to the religious to the religious analogies that we are making into all of the historical dominant male archetypes that have existed throughout history and things like that. So I would say that that's where Steve Jobs falls.
I think you're very, very close. I think you got a lot of it is what I mean. So Steve Jobs was very much seen as an innovator, seen as very much the smartest of us all, that kind of stuff. People have somewhat related Apple stores to quasi temples that are established throughout the land. And then the brand of Apple itself was the thing that you use to signify to the other people that you are part of this group. And if you don't have the iPhone, you can just get the heck out. And then lastly, the innovation, and then promising that if you buy the Apple product, you will become the superior man, that kind of stuff. So
it's amusing how much that still exists to this day. There's a lot of I don't want to say You know what I'll say? I'll say superficial women. There's a lot of superficial women out there who, as soon as they see the green text appear on their phone, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not dating this guy," and it's like, "Oh, well, all right." Like you get disqualified simply for not being a part of the in group, for not being a part of the tribe, for not being a part of the Apple community. And it's also
There you go.
amusing, like when you look at the statistics of Android users versus Apple users, men versus women. Like you see a lot more men using Androids than you do women, and you see a lot more women using iPhones than you do men. And it's like it's very interesting in the tribal nature. It's not to say that it's like it's a perfect sort of thing, but you do see a lot of tribalism, and you do see a lot of like religious implication in the use case of phones. And then you see like wealthy people with multiple phones who's just like, oh yeah, I don't give a fuck what your opinion is. It's like I'm out here to get shit done. So
Almost
there's
like
a
they
whole bunch of-
transcended that struggle. But
yes.
To your point, I think you were accurate, which is that if we go off of the book's representation of the archetype he fits into, it's definitely more of the dominant kind of controlling, believing that they are the more perfect person and that the other people are somewhat inferior to them because you're not as smart as Steve Jobs. You don't have this cult of personality built around you. You don't have all these shrines of devotion, aka Apple stores that give him money, built all over the world just for you. That kind of stuff. So I did feed this into ChatGPT. I fed it the book and then I told it to think about things and then I whipped it when I disagreed with it and said it to reevaluate. But yeah, it came out with that Steve Jobs embodied the visionary prophet king kind of archetype, which is that he is the one that will lead you into the future. He is the king, the prophet. He's smarter, he's wiser, he sees into the crystal ball, that kind of stuff.
I think it's funny, like whenever a new Apple comes out, you always see lines and lines and lines of people sitting outside of the store waiting to pick up their new religious text. You don't see this when like the new Google Pixel comes out, or when the new Samsung comes out, or when the new, I don't know, whatever track phone comes out. And so there's a lot of religious fervor and a lot of like really good comparison that exists with that choice. So good selection, Mr. Zenith. I like that.
Yeah, I also have another somewhat related one if we want to run through that one real quick.
Yeah,
and
let's
that's
hear it.
none other than Elon Musk.
Ooh,
If he
yes.
was seen as some sort of religious figure, what kind of like tropes and archetypes would people throw at him, or would he try to portray to the people, would you say?
So I think he falls more into the prestigious category than the dominant category. And like you can, I think he's more of a thinker and more of a like encourage people to like him kind of person. Now he doesn't need it, but I think that he works more in that realm than Steve Jobs did. Where cares more about that stuff. So that's
I would
that's
agree with
what I
you. And
Yeah.
the AI agrees with you as well, which is
Ah!
that. So
Of course,
let's
his child agrees with him. Or
let's
did you
break
use
down the
Grok or
projects or the
GPT?
GPT. Let's break down the companies that he's run. So Tesla. What is Tesla trying to do?
Make money, get to Mars, and get people to subscribe to their business model and become a Tesla.
What does Tesla produce?
Cars.
What kind of
and
cars?
AI. Oh, self-driving. So AI.
No, think before that.
Environmentally safe.
What fuel source do the cars run on?
Oh, electricity.
Cool. Why are you making electric cars?
To not burn gas. So like
Exactly. What does burning gas do?
Oh, it destroys the environment, sort of thing.
There you go. So he's
Okay.
someone that's trying to save the environment. Theoretically, if the environment dies, what happens to all of us?
Man, you really had to spoon feed me that one, didn't you?
Sorry. My bad.
No, you're right. No. I'm amused at my own lack of like ability to pick up what you're trying to put down.
All good. Tell you what, let's go to the second one here. SpaceX. What does SpaceX produce and do?
They're trying to better humanity and give more options.
What do they produce?
Rockets.
Rockets. What do the rockets do? Or where do they go?
Mars.
Why are you trying to go to Mars?
Because Earth is full or something.
Okay, so if Earth is full, then that means there's no more room for
people.
There you go. All right. So he's
Okay.
trying to save the environment, trying to
Yep.
make life better for people. And then this is a little more of an abstract one. So when he bought Twitter, why did he buy Twitter?
For freedom of speech.
There you go.
There
So
we go. Yes. So
all
he's
the- all
definitely
these-
more into the prestigious.
Exactly. All three of these things very much fit into the archetype of like the paternal, eternal father that provides to the people and is here for you to save you, that kind of stuff.
Ooh, we've
Make
got
sense?
some good thoughts from Mr. Moondog. Tesla's attempting to become a power grid owner. That's interesting.
Interesting.
Lithium supply chain mover and shaker, defense contracts, satellites. Yeah, I mean, it's different types of power. Different types of power. I suppose that we're telling campfire stories as to why, but we can speculate, we can infer.
Yeah. By the way,
Uh,
if you want, there was a really good video that came out today. I mentioned it on a previous show we were on. How money works. He had a really good video. It's like 10 minutes today, talking about AI and like what is the cost of us pursuing AI. And one of the things he talks about is the electrical cost and the cost on the power grid, or like how much we're taxing the power grid just based on the need that we're pulling from it. So that was a great one. Definitely recommend it if you can check it out.
yes, that is a very real thing. And it's also very heavily government subsidized. It's not a whole lot of like direct consumer paid for. So like when we use AI, of course there's a subscription, whatnot, but it's like we're not the ones that are paying for the electricity. The government's paying for the electricity. And then who is the government? We are the government. The people are the ones that pay for the government. So it's like you either pay with inflation or you pay with taxes. And then there's a whole bunch of tax breaks given to the electric companies, and the price of electricity is driven up. So if you've seen your power bill rising lately, a lot of it has to do with AI power consumption and things of that nature. So one of the interesting things that I think about is like, man, why don't we just scale up our ability to generate power? Like we have the means to make more nuclear. We have the means to like not be burning coal at like a 3-to-1 power ratio. Like we can scrap all the all the fucking we can scrap the plans to make more wind farms, which like are terrible and operate at like a 1/3 efficiency, like throughout their entire lifespan. Like there's ways to get more power safely. So like instead of making it more expensive for everyone, why don't we just generate more? There is more need for power. So like I don't understand how all these things work and whatnot, but I think that would be pretty nifty to kind of sort of solve the problem. On a short aside, we don't want to go down too far down this rabbit hole, but let's move into the crypto space. So there's my
Let's
super
let's
smooth transition for you. Or do you got something?
let's do the Bitcoin man.
Let's do the Bitcoin man. So let's talk about cryptocurrency. So you've given some other ones. So there's some figures that I had AI pull up for the more dominant type personalities, and then there's cryptocurrency figures who are more in the prestigious world. So Mr. Zenith, I gave you some earlier, I think in the green room or perhaps on the show live. I don't remember anymore where we do it. All the conversations all melded together. So who are some figures that you can think of in the cryptocurrency space that fall into the more dominant category, and who are some of the cryptocurrency creators that fall into the more prestigious category?
All right. So when I reference Bitcoin man, we have two possible options here. Number one is Satoshi. Number two is Michael Saylor. Let's do Satoshi first.
Yep.
So obviously Satoshi, the creator of Bitcoin, the anonymous name behind it, but he did create Bitcoin and he created the Bitcoin white paper. So if we remember, Bitcoin was created after the 2008 financial collapse, where the U.S. government effectively bailed out a bunch of banks and insurance companies. Didn't really, as some people say, didn't really need it because that was taxpayer dollars going to private institutions. So Bitcoin is created. It's supposed to be the people's money. It's supposed to be peer-to-peer transactions. It's supposed to be anonymous, but at the same time, everything's on the blockchain. No restrictions, no regulations, freedom of movement, freedom of money, fix the money supply, all these kinds of things. So when it comes to any sort of propagation, there's not really anything regarding that. When it comes to dominance, the only sort of dominance thing I can really identify is that it's directly trying to compete with money. It's trying to be the best money. It's trying to be perfect money, if you will. And then as far as the symbolatry or the rituals, which is really all you got to do is either run a Bitcoin miner or just do the peer-to-peer transactions. So for this one, I definitely think that Satoshi, the religious aspects you could try to put there is that it's definitely more of that like savior archetype or the benevolent person. It's like he did this for the good of humanity kind of thing. What do you think?
I think that's a good one. Yeah,
All
Satoshi
right.
is definitely in the prestigious area. For the dominant one, um, let's explore the dominant one. Did you mention it already, or am I going to spoil it here if I
Go
say so?
for it.
So Michael Saylor would be
There
the
you go.
would be the dominant example for Bitcoin. Michael Saylor is much more like in your face. He's much more like, yeah, if you don't buy Bitcoin, then you're basically poor and you're fucked. and I'm going to win. So you should join my team, or else you're fucked. And then like shows up to nightclubs with boatloads of women, and like he's all zazzled and dazzled out there, like basically just out there talking the big game, getting people to buy MicroStrategy and pushing and moving. So you have the Satoshi guy, the guy who created the thing, wherever he is now, probably dead or something. And then you have the guy who's out there like doing the fighting for the thing, pumping his own bags, doing all the work, and like out there basically hitting people over the head with the financial club, saying, "Hey, join my team or you're going to lose. Hop on, put me up on MSNBC or whatever the hell, and let's have an interview, and I'll just smoke you all." And yeah, that's the like the dominant example for Bitcoin. And then you have go ahead.
So for those two, it's kind of a bit of a dichotomy, which you're trying to highlight there, which is that Satoshi, through the anonymity, and then also not really having like an ego attached to it, or really going after anybody in particular, you lose out on a lot of that like dominant kind of like warlike spirit kind of stuff. When you have Michael Saylor, it's definitely a little bit more of that, which is you have someone that's really trying to push forward and really trying to like walk into the firefights, walk into the debates, go up against the biggest people in the world, put his name out there and say that, yeah, I am one of the richest people on earth due to this thing. And again, he's not really doing it for other people. He's kind of spreading the message for other people, but a lot of it was really centered around the big gamble that he took with MicroStrategies, which is that, look, I am at the head of this company. We can either be a zombie company for 10 to 15 more years, or we can make the big gamble. And it worked out. And a lot of people are now trying to copy him, whether we're looking at the people trying to become the Michael Saylor of Ethereum and stuff. But Michael Saylor himself, it's trying to have that position of dominance, which is Bitcoin is the best money. People are like, why are you buying at the top? He's like, I'll never stop buying tops. I am that guy.
I will drag you all with me to success. And keep going. Let's do a transition into the cryptocurrency world that we know and love, which is Hex. We've got a good comment here from Mr. Moondog that kind of just brings us right on into it. Satoshi, why are you being a little bitch? Focusing on music when Bitcoin needs you. And this was Richard Hart to Jack Dorsey a couple of years ago. So the joke here being that Jack Dorsey is Satoshi, which who knows? Maybe he is, maybe he's not. Could be, could not be. Could be Hal Finney, could be Len Sassaman, or could have been Hal Finney or Len Sassaman. Could be with the only person that we know is not Bitcoin Satoshi is Mr. Craig Wright. So 8 billion minus 1 are your options for who could be Satoshi, and there you go. So Richard is the reason that I chose this book for book club is because of one of Satoshi's podcasts, or not Satoshi, one of Sommi's podcasts.
Oh, Sommi, there you go.
One of
All of
Sommi's
our friends.
Videos. Yes, shout out to Sommi. Shout out to your friend Sommi. Go check him out. He's a friend and stuff, and he makes content. There is a religious leader, whether you like it or not. Sommi is a priest, or he is an apostle, or he is a religious leader himself. For whatever you want to call it, whether it's the tokens that he shills, whether he's talking about PDI or Hex or something else. Like Sommi is a religious figure. He's out there doing the work. I wouldn't say that he's the dominant type. I wouldn't say that he's necessarily the prestigious type, but he is the entertaining type. So he might not be a dominant religion figure. But let me wind it back a little bit. Sommi did a podcast talking about how Richard, it used to be Old Testament dominant Richard, in your face, like, get the fuck out of here, like, buy my coins, you're gonna be poor. I'm gonna go on a debate and fuck all y'all up. I'm gonna do 8-hour streams. I'm gonna talk about things. I'm gonna flex the watches. I'm gonna go buy the cars. I'm gonna do all this, that, and the other thing, outrage marketing. And before that existed, Richard was like more in the prestigious world of like self-help and self-improvement with Sci-Vive and teaching people like pickup artistry stuff back in that day. So like Richard's put on a bunch of different hats throughout the years. And after his disappearance in the last bull market, where he stopped streaming and he called the top and he did the things and the other stuff, like Richard's been kind of like out of the wayside. He's been doing more like of the humble Richard stuff. He's been doing more of the attempt at being prestigious and being intellectual and influential in that respect, more so than the dominant in your face type. So there's a dichotomy there between the alpha dominant Richard of last bull market and the prestigious Richard of this bull market, the Old Testament versus the New Testament, as Sommi so well put it in his podcast. What do you have anything that you want to add to that before I hop into some of the questions here?
Well, I was gonna say, we can also, let's just walk through this one by one. So let's go through all the points we talked about in the book. Talked about dominance and warlike stuff. yeah, he's a guy that has gone on the debates. He's definitely gone after certain people or ideas or things. And in particular, one of the narratives surrounding Richard Hart is that he was kind of snubbed back in the day by a lot of other crypto founders when he released Hex and stuff like that. So could be maybe out there trying to fight against the big boys and try to really come out as the superior one here. If we go into the propagation standpoint, he really didn't talk about propagation for like followers or anything, but he, as we covered in Savive, has definitely talked about this kind of stuff, which is trying to just live the best life you can. For him, that also includes chasing hot blonde girls in the club and attracting women that way. You also saw it in the highest of stakes. He's always surrounding himself with beautiful women and that kind of stuff. From the symbolic ritual kind of thing, Hexaco is a thing. You could call it a people, if you will, but there's also a ritual sacrifice that Hexicans do. And what is that, Will? There you go. It's the Quattro Cinco staking.
There you go. That is how you that's how you you sacrifice the value for the thing to live. You know, it's kind of like the how much effort do you put in versus how much effort do you take out kind of thing. You know,
Yeah,
later on you can take out more numerically than you put in, right? But you have spent time and you have spent opportunity in the meantime. So that's like one of the easiest ways that people can contribute to Hexaco is by staking. And like some would argue that the true Hexicans are all staked and all the other ones are all faking, but it's like, you know, whatever. Like people are allowed to do whatever they want. But like you cannot deny that there is value in there is a value transfer in the destruction of something valuable in order for it to live longer, or in order for or with the aim for it to live longer, and also getting personal gain along at the same time. So that's like the whole, like, we make this offering to the religious figure, we make this offering to the idea of the religion itself. It doesn't have to be like you don't necessarily like burn the food so that God can, you know, eat and be full. It's like we know that God's not going to eat the food. We're destroying the food to say like, hey, thank you for making this cool thing. Here's how you can tell that our belief in this system is real, is because we will destroy valuable things in the name, like without hurting, you know, anyone. We will destroy valuable things in the aim of making this other thing more valuable. I've used the analogy a couple times on stream of like when a young man joins the military and they go through boot camp, they sacrifice their individuality, they sacrifice their peace, they sacrifice their like who they were, and they go through a whole bunch of pain and torment in order to become a thing that is better than the thing that they were when they went in by sacrifice. Like same thing when you join a fraternity and you get hazed in the very beginning. You sacrifice your dignity, your peace, your whatever. When you join any sort of team and there's a initiation ritual, it's like, hey, you got to sacrifice something in order to be considered valuable. Same thing, you know, if you want to take it on the criminal route of like gangs, sometimes when you join gangs, you have to go and commit crime in the name of the gang. It's like I have to sacrifice my law abiding self in order to prove that like I'm taking this seriously, you know, sort of thing.
Yeah, to take the staking idea down to a more granular level, you can absolutely do it kind of in like the performative way, which is you're trying to do like the sacrifice or whatever, even though you're making a contract with yourself to hopefully make more money in the future. But the more ones and zeros of it is that what you're doing is you are locking up assets for a specific amount of time. What this does is it locks you out of doing other things with the assets, namely selling it, or I don't know if you could go stake it somewhere, that kind of thing. So you can very easily see how it's more of a symbol of commitment to an idea or a group. It's not exactly, obviously we're kind of taking the piss out of this when we're doing like really trying to chalk up all the religious stuff, because we're trying to like see if we can draw those parallels at all and then walk it back and be like, is it real? But when you're doing that, you are giving up the opportunity cost of potentially selling early or being the Jeet, if you will. But instead you're saying, no, I'm here for 15 and a half years. We're here for the long run. This is my commitment to the team, to the idea, to the token, that kind of stuff. So that's where we can kind of draw the religious thing there. And then the final analysis or final point of analysis is the old symbolic stuff, which is that Richard Hart does do some very symbolic things, which is he has the watches, he has the throne, he has the top hat, the teddy bear, the Gucci, the twerking, the driving race cars, whatever. It's a lot of symbolism, a lot of the peacocking, a lot of I have the biggest hat, therefore I'm the ruler of Hex.
He
There you
does
go.
do a lot of that stuff. Do you think that some founders rely on shock value and lavish displays more so than is that the sort of thing that creates quick attention but not lasting attention? Do you think that
I would
that
agree.
that's
It definitely creates quick attention. It's one of those things where it is the person trying to signify that they have all this wonderful stuff. They have the money, the cars, the women, the vacations, the watches, whatever. And it's like, oh, if you do what I do, you too could live this life potentially.
yeah.
That kind of stuff. That is very much a quick flash in the pan, kind of like catch the eye. It's the low order of thinking, the unga bunga hot girl shiny rock kind of thinking. And then once you get into the higher orders of thinking, once you have more time to really think about it and chew on it, that's where you can actually see, like, you get out of that like quick thinking, you get into the slow thinking. So you're like, all right, I am trying to escape inflation, trying to find a better money, trying to make money in an investment process as well. Okay, let's dive into the actual fundamentals kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. That leads perfectly into my next question. In the projects or communities where the founder's like highly visible and outspoken, how can the community ensure that the focus remains on the community and the tech and the underlying principles, and not just the personality, not just the flash in the pan?
That's, again, think fast, think slow, which is that if you're just attracted by the shiny object, odds are you might find a nugget of gold. You could also find a piece of tinfoil. It's that kind of stuff. This is the part where you really deviate from that like low order of thinking, or maybe kind of like the cult psychology, if you want to call it that, of just like getting on board with the team and saying my red team good or Hex team good, everyone else bad, boo XRP, boo Charles Hutchinson. Or that's Cardano, actually. Never mind. That kind of stuff. So,
all right.
Yeah, when it comes to trying to it's taken it to another order. We've covered a lot of this podcast talking about trying to look at the book, see what it says are religious ideas or religious ways of thinking. What you're talking about now is actually outside of that. It is removing that like hype, the in-group identification, the feeling good, and more of like trying to do the math and like do the numbers and figure it out. Like, okay, what is actually economically beneficial for myself? Is this an area that I am able to do that kind of thing? And when you have the collective of people that are also trying to get on board with this thing because they see it as a viable product with good product market fit and good fundamentals, that is something that can transcend all of that. And that's where you actually get that good community building that direction instead of just team psychology of just hating the Raiders because you think they're bad people or something like that.
So like some of like people develop the cult personalities and then the religion. That's where we get the infighting, and that's where we get the like, oh, I hate your token because you're bad guy. Oh, I hate your token because you're bad guy. You're not on my team. You're extracting value. You're vampiring from my ecosystem, or whatever the hell. Like some
Agreed.
of the leaders, they'll create like a cult of personality. You think that that begets weakness in the community, in the thing that they're building? Like, is it sustainable?
I don't think it's necessarily sustainable. I think it's attention grabbing. And I think that what we've seen is a lot of trying to compete in the metagame that exists in today. And the metagame that exists today is different than the metagame that existed 3, 4, 5 even years ago. It moves that fast.
Yeah.
So if we're specifically doing this as kind of like the analysis of Richard Hart. So you mentioned it before. Back in the day, it was a lot of the outrage marketing, that kind of thing, dressing up in all the Gucci gear, videoing yourself going to the Gucci store, spending ungodly amounts of money on clothing that's by large sensibilities ugly and worthless, but it has a high price tag, therefore it's somewhat sought after. That kind of stuff, it drives attention, and that was what the original intention was, to drive attention. The hope was that the attention would induce you to do further research into the actual financial product, because at the end of the day, these things are financial products. They are financial investment vehicles. They are literal currencies that are used to be traded. It is not just trying to sign on to, oh, I want to associate myself with this cool guy so other people will think I'm cool. The cool guy stuff was marketing. That was the marketing designed to grab attention in what was believed to be a very high attention economy. There was a lot of noise, a lot of other people trying to get their signal out there. and that kind of stuff. Do I think that that is sustainable for actual growth of a good product? I don't think so. And I think that we've seen the shift away from that. That's where you talked about. We have the benevolent, the humble Richard now, which is the guy that wants to make 1 million millionaires, and he wants to have the most stable money and that kind of stuff.
I'm personally of the opinion that like the charismatic and like confident leader types, the more prestigious ones, are the ones that get the longevity. But it's like, there is a point to having the flash in the pan. If there is no flash in the pan, then how do people learn? If people never learn, they never get to that point. So like we take a look at the Bitcoin example, and it started with prestige, and it turned into like dominance when the prestige eventually pittered away. And like
Yeah.
we're almost lucky that Bitcoin didn't have competitors early on, that it was the only thing. Because like if there were competitors, if there were other things, then it's like it would be a very different cryptocurrency world. It would be a very different place that we're in right now.
Agreed. There's also an alternative timeline where if Bitcoin had competitors at launch, the entire cryptocurrency space might not even exist today because it might have just pittered out. I think that it hit a criticality point. It hit a critical mass where it actually exploded to the point where it allowed for other alternatives to come in and compete within the space instead of just people just fighting over scraps in the very beginning before it could actually like get out of the crib, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I think that I do wonder. I do wonder, man. I want to take a minute and highlight Mr. New to God Plankton. We're in the right place, but confirmation bias feels good with a little peace symbol there. You're absolutely right.
It feels good, but know that it's not good for you. But it does feel good, yes.
Yes, confirmation bias does feel good, and it keeps us continuing to do the thing that we're doing. Now the problem is that we put on like our circle jerk glasses, and now we don't know what the world is changing around us because we're too busy like feeling good in our own little world. So there's an argument to be made for being a believer and staying the course. There's an argument to be made to adapting your worldview to the new norm. Like Bitcoin is not always going to be the best thing. There might be something else that becomes better. I mean, like I say that, not knowing, but like odds are something else better at some point will sprout up. Now it might not be as good or as awesome as Bitcoin is right now. It might take a long time. It might be the first guns were like dog shit compared to the guns are nowadays. Like gun technology has increased a ton since the first like arquebus and Jalales and all those like old matchlock rifles and Matrolus and into the Gatling gun and then into the Kalashnikov, and then like now there's a whole bunch of failed guns along the way, like flechette guns. Those never worked. The gyrojet, that didn't take off. Like I could go on and on because this is my realm of knowledge and things. But the like at some point there's going to be technology that outpaces the original technology but we were blessed with having a big giant united place where everyone could go and do the same thing, and it lasted long enough and wasn't fucked with long enough that it now sprouted into becoming like one of the world's top performing like assets and top performing um classes of investment. So it's pretty freaking nifty. But I agree, Mr. Plankton, the confirmation bias does feel good. What do you think, Z?
Confirmation bias is the thing. Don't confuse it for getting true confirmation because that's actually valuable to look at. But
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we are here very finite, very temporarily. So try to have a little bit of fun while you're going. It's what I talked about when we did the last book about building habits, which is sure you could build habits all your life, but like, what's the point of building habits? Why are you doing it? That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I like it a lot.
All right, so let's finish up our conclusion of Richard Hart as the physical or the religious figure. So talked about there are aspects and things that is created that have these little nits and bits of religious psychology attached to them, but at the same time I hope we've done a good job of also illustrating that no, these are financial products. Please don't just like have religious beliefs and believe that if you stake enough Quattro Cinco times and your soul's going to go to Hexaco in the eternity afterlife where there's nothing but Lambos and money guns and Gucci tracksuits for everyone. No.
What was this a question?
I'll be honest, don't really remember. But
Okay.
here's this. So we've summarized Richard Hart in the religious psychological sense. Is there anything else that I missed? Like, are there any other aspects where people may be able to attach some sort of religious thinking to kind of like Richard Hart, the entity and the products that he's made?
I don't think there's much more. We've covered that pretty well. I want to kind of tie it off in a more broad question. Just get the folks at home thinking to get you thinking. So my question is, how do you personally respond to leaders who evolve their style over time? Does it affect your trust or engagement? What are your guys' thoughts? Like, what do you do with leaders who adapt? What do you do with leaders who stay the same?
I think that evolving, there's a difference. There's changing and evolving. Changing is just a change. Evolving is hopefully in the positive direction in some way, shape, or form. If
Good
you watch
distinction.
people evolve over time and work towards some sort of better idea or system or person, then that actually, I think, very much builds trust because it shows the ability to learn and grow. Versus there are definitely people that change. This is the classic thing that you people in the 1970s and 80s threw out at their formerly favorite bands, and they're saying, "You sold out, man. You changed. You signed with the record label. What are you doing? The music's lost its soul." That kind of stuff. So specifically for Richard Hart, yeah, it's been a progression. Am I in it for the cult of personality? Personally, no. And I think if you ask a lot of people, they're also not in it for the cult of personality. Richard Hart is the way he speaks is a bit of a paradox, which is that he did an entire outrage marketing campaign with scam tactics because he knew that scam tactics would get people in, and he purposely designed a product that was built not with scam tactics, but with delayed gratification and good solid fundamentals behind it through a medium, aka cryptocurrency, that he thought was a better evolution of the money system. So it's the paradox of I'm building a good thing for you, but I'm going to get you to use the good thing in ways that you have been trained that are bad for you.
Paradoxical is a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you might even be able to say it's how you see the change in personality, but I do see it as a bit of an evolution, which is that, yes, we started with the outrage marketing. We started with yelling at Charles Hoskinson's. We started with fighting with all the other crypto communities and that kind of stuff. And it's progressed to a place where we've gotten to a fully decentralized chain with immutable code that appears to be very, very beneficial. Granted, the price chart might not reflect that just yet, but we don't have a crystal ball for the future. We have a good idea of things where it may go or may not go. But overall, it's the evolution of outrage marketing, trying to grab as much attention as possible to going through the development cycle, making the good product, and actually trying to build a thing that is not predatory and is actually going to potentially benefit people. If you get hung up on the outrage marketing stuff, you're never going to get to the end point, or this is not the end point, but this is the current point. But I also understand, which is that at a glance, it doesn't make any sense at all, which is that you see this guy who was yelling at people on the webcam wearing a top hat and a Gucci tracksuit. And then you also see him trying to build something that is immutable and supposed to be good and not allow for rug pulls and that kind of stuff. And you see these as very conflicting messages. So
I agree. On the subject of conflicting messages, Richie seems from Moondog. Richie seems to genuinely want to be loved more than he already is, and he doesn't always handle it well. But he has organized, built, and shared some amazing things to balance the scale. For what it's worth.
Well said, sir.
Well said, Moondog. I like that. There's some other things that were well said. Mr. Hex Glenn has come in and give us a wave. Hello to you too, Mr. Hex Glenn. We've also got Taylor rocking in with the shaka. Good to see you, broski. Fucking put it up on the concrete jungle. Eventually switch to surfboards, bro. It's a lot softer of a fall, but you don't have to worry about sharks in the skate park. We've got Moondog earlier. He said that Sommi is a jester / priest. The jester is the sacred ancient archetype. Ask me how I know.
There
How do
you
you
go.
know, Mr. Moondog? Always glad to have you with us. Always glad to have all of y'all with us. And then just a reiteration of new to God Plankton. We're in the right place. Confirmation bias feels good. Absolutely right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on this fantastic book club. Any final thoughts, Zenith, before we wrap up?
Yeah. So to break the fourth wall a bit here, was this a 2-hour long, somewhat shit post of trying to analyze cryptocurrency figures by using a book talking about the psychology of religion? Yes. It is also being able to recognize when your brain has these certain ways of thinking and how humans in the past have either used it for benefit or not for benefit or for evil potentially. Obviously, this is a cryptocurrency focused channel, so we want to analyze the stuff that we're doing now. Religion is a very, very large part of people's lives. In fact, it's one of the biggest things that people have been trying to contend with since humans' existence, which is why are we here? What are we trying to do? What is good and evil? What is the point of doing all the weird rituals and stuff? Is there any, is there, exactly, 42, baby. Is there any benefit to doing it and that kind of stuff? So was this show talking about that? No. Was this show trying to analyze how, especially in the modern day and age, we've seen the rise of people using this religious psychology and trying to apply it to certain people that they believe might save them or might do something for them or might vanquish their enemies, that kind of stuff. Yes, that was the whole point. Do we think that Richard Hart is a godlike figure? No, he's a man, just like you and me. We are all flesh and blood. He is no more a more moral or better person except by the actions and the God that judges him, that kind of stuff. Do I think that Hex is a religious sacrifice? No, I think it is an investment vehicle. Do I like it? Yes, I do. Do I think that Pulse Chain is the same way? Yes, and I think that Pulse Chain is an excellent product that was designed to make Hex better. Are there downsides to these things? Yes, there are. There's opportunity cost. There's also potential of the whole thing failing. There's also potential of having the whole RH ego backfire on us. It's all possible, but these are risks that I hope that everyone out there has taken into account before investing your money in something. Nothing we say here is financial advice or legal advice, but what we're saying is that these are very complicated things. Life is very complicated. If you try to look at things through a single lens, like the religious psychology lens, you're probably going to be missing out on a lot of very other important stuff. So if I could give you any advice, it's don't do that. Moonpill Rational Optics, here's your lecture.
Yep, and yep. I agree, broski. And I will summarize that down to it's important to think about how you think and why you think. Start thinking about thinking, because if you're just going through on, on the if you're just operating as it happens, operating on instinct, then you can probably do some pretty cool things, but you will be held back in other respects. So think about thinking, think about why you think. The options that are in front of you are the ones that you can see, or are the ones that are put in front of you. And if you don't break out of that shell, you're only ever going to see the options that are like directly placed in front of you or that you stumble upon by accident. So learning how your mind works, learning how the human psychology works, learning how we think about things, and learning about the machine that is yourself will give you a better handle to tackle the future and whatever it holds. So excellent thoughts, Zenith. I freaking like it. Where can the folks find you, and what have you got going on in the near future? And do you have a book choice for the next book club?
I don't have a book choice, but tell you what, I do want to spread some goodwill with the people that are here all the time.
I was thinking The Art of War, but Moonpill
Did we already do that one?
No, we have not.
Tell you what, I want to do the book that Moonpill Rational Optics shared with us. It is called All About Bitcoin. He says it is a 2-hour book you can hand anyone that knows nothing about cryptocurrency and have a good understanding of history and its use by the end of it.
Okay, excellent. All About Bitcoin will be the next book for book club. I am making the topic right now. All about Bitcoin. All right, and where can the folks find you, and what have you got going on?
Folks, you can find me on X and Instagram at ZenithDI, as the little handle here says. But more importantly, you can also catch me and Will inside of the DGen Roundtable Telegram by scanning the QR code down to my right. And outside of that, we're going to be back for our usual shows. I'm going to have to talk to Will about the Sunday show because I might have a potential conflict. But outside of that, we're going to be back on Wednesday for Whiskey Wednesday. And after that, we're going to be back for book club, like we just mentioned. All the streams you can find here on the DGen Roundtable YouTube channel or over on Twitter at our Twitter page, or X now, if you will. And we stream at 8 p.m. Eastern time every show. So it makes it nice and simple for you guys. That is what we got. And then outside of that, also doing the Walk the Block stuff. So going to be streaming on Monday as well. And we're in an exciting time right now. We appear to have hit a new 60-day cycle low for the crypto markets based on the Bitcoin 60-day cycle. How low it goes, we'll have to see. We have some ideas for you, and we're happy to share that with you. But also, just remember, based on the 4-year cycle, we are coming close to potential top time. So things might get crazy. You might get caught up in the euphoria. Don't believe that Bitcoin's going to save your soul just because you bought it at the top. But please pay attention. Have your strategy in mind. Know your risk mitigation, your risk appetite, and have a plan for getting in and out at the opportune times based on what you got going on. Outside of that, folks, thank you so much for watching. This has been an excellent show. Will, where can the folks find you? And what do you got going on?
The folks can find me at will.pls.fyi. That's where all my socials are linked at. As far as stuff that I've got going on in the near future, I have to do chat shoutouts here in a minute, and shout out Dr. H, the cryptopractor, who has been so kind as to join us. How are you doing, DGens? We're doing fantastic and awesome. Thank you, Dr. H. Good to see you, broski. I would love to come get my back cracked by you at some point in the future. If ever I find myself up your way, I'll come say hello. But for the folks at home, you guys can find all my stuff at will.pls.fyi. That's where everything is linked from. As far as stuff in the near future, tomorrow I'm going to Canton First Monday. It's going to be a good time. For those of you guys who don't know about Canton First Monday, it is the world's biggest flea market, and I fucking love it. It's held in Canton, Texas, just outside of Dallas, on off of Interstate 20. And boy howdy, is it awesome! So I'm going there, meeting up with some amazing amigos. We're going to do some fun stuff. And then after that, I'm going up to Ohio to help out my buddy Marco with some racing stuff. So I'm going to go be not a racist, but I'm going to go be a racer, or not a racer. I'm going to go be at a race, supporting the race, and I'm going to be sitting at a booth doing something. So I'm like handing out merch or whatever the heck from my buddy's shop. So shout out to all the racers out there, and to everyone that drives cars fast and gives me opportunity to have a really cool job working for a fabrication company. So that's what I'm doing. I also don't know. I guess let's just hash this out about the show for Sunday as well. You said you're going to be potentially busy, because
Yes.
okay. I can figure something out, broski. I got it. No sweat. So there we go. We will have our normal Sunday show. As you guys can see right down here, it tells you that we are live every 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, where we will be doing this fantastic stream. Ooh, I got to let you know, actually, Zenith, I won't be available for book club on next Friday. So should we postpone book club for the following Friday?
Yes,
Wow.
sir.
Right after I say we stream every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. We're not going to be doing book club next Friday, guys, because I'm going to be on the road. That's when we're traveling up to Ohio to do the thing. So I'm going to be with my boss, and we're going to be moving and sweating and doing things. So
Tell you what, though,
there's
if you don't like the fact that Will and I are apparently slacking on the streams, guess what? There are also live streams inside of the Telegram. Dace,
Yes.
Jay, Tracker, the other DGens, we all get in there, mix it up, talk about charts, talk about current events going on. So if you want the best and latest information, that's where you're going to find it outside of the scheduled stuff here.
Yep. And you guys can do it again by scanning that QR code. If you're on the listening crew and you can't see the QR code, then go to t.me/DRT join now, or you can click on this fantastic little link that I was so kind to put for you guys in the live chat. We love you all. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and take us out now. It's time to go, and I'm going to do it in style. There's actually a really cool quote that I'm going to take away from Dr. Hector Garcia from the book, Science is Not Just a Way of Knowing, It's a Way of Escaping. So use that to your advantage, boys and girls. There we go. And I want to thank you all for spending your valuable time with us here on the DGen Roundtable. As Agent Jay often says, we know that time is your most valuable asset, and we appreciate you spending each and every single one of those assets right here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Will Stevenson, but more importantly, you have been watching the DGen Roundtable. I am the producer, so I'm going to go ahead and get my trigger finger ready, because it's time to remind all the folks at home to remember to DGen responsibly.